It's new, and they finally replaced the most popular model they ever had. Stay tuned and let's see what we're reviewing next. Welcome back to the mcgolfshop. Jim McCleary, most awarded certified club maker, club fitter, where you learn about club repairs, club fitting, and club reviews so your scores can go low. Please like and subscribe and swing and hit that bell down at the bottom, and that way when these videos drop the next time, you are informed. So what was the most popular model? Callaway Apex iron. The Apex iron. If you remember, they called it the CF16. It was the Callaway Apex. And it was a very, very forgiving forged club, right? And normally what most OEMs, including Callaway, does is that every 2 years they cycle their models out, right? So if you have a larger line, you take a particular portion of them and you make them on this model year, and you take another portion and make them this model year, and that way they're always, rotating around. That way the company always has something to tell you and me, and that's how they keep their name out in front, and instead of rotating it every year or every 4 months, which was ridiculous, right? Well, the Apex was into it was over its 3rd year, right? It was over its 3rd year, which is really saying something when you're talking about a lot of money in the industry. It's a real testament to that particular design. They had a kind of a challenge ahead of them when they wanted to design the next Apex iron, right? And so this is the beginning, right? When we do these club reviews, it's from a club maker, club fitter standpoint. So I am looking at it from the characteristics of the head, the shaft, the grip, and then we go into the fitting and find out who they would really be for. But in this part, we talk about the overall, the overhead view, right? So my friends at Callaway, again, have hooked me up with blow-aparts, right? Blow-aparts. And that helps us talk about what's going on in this club head that makes it work. If you look, of course, it doesn't fit. There's about about an 1/8 inch blade that these guys are using to cut. And so when you cut it, you see that. All right, that's what's going on. You notice how all the weight is really close to the bottom. All right, again, help you get the ball up in the air, and they marry that weight towards the lofts that they want to get so that you're not ballooning the shot and you get this increased distance, right? The increased distance. And if you look in here, see where that's shiny? All right, that's another weight that runs along the length of in here, and then it's got another piece of metal that was the original design, and that goes in, and then you see the black that goes all the way up in here. That's a piece of soft rubber, right? Or rubber material, we'll say, because it's probably not pure rubber. Anyway, so you got the rubber goes all the way up in here, and then you got the medallion on the back. All right, so it has what I call a brushed or soft satin appearance, right? And it's all the black medallion on the back to kind of offset it. Really no fancy, glow in the dark stuff, which is really good. When we go to look at it, it's going to have what I would call a medium-low offset on it, and I would say this is still going to be a forgiving iron. And if you look at it, the head is what I would call in the medium range, medium range, probably medium range, and so it's going to be for the average better player. And again, it's a forged iron, but what I have for you after this is how does it really go together? You see it right here, that's all good and dandy, but watch this. All right, so let's say that you're the Callaway engineer and you want to show off how you just made your latest golf club to somebody. How are you going to do that? Well, in pieces, parts, just like we did, right? Yeah, but that doesn't go over very well. So like everything else in a lot of the Callaway irons, you have cup face technology, right? We'll start with the face first. Cup face technology, there it is. Can you see it's got a lot on the bottom. So if you were to sit in here and throw a little water on it, it would actually hold the water as long as you didn't overfill the sides. That's cup face technology. All right, and so the idea of cup face is, it's good on center hits, but it's not nearly as penal on off-center hits. Okay, so that's the beginning of it. But how does it all get put together? Well, it starts like that. All right, there's the forged, you know, that's a pretty neat body, right? That's the skeleton of which everything is going to be built. Now we want the weight to be very low. Remember that shiny piece I showed you? Well, that's what it looks like. It's a big old piece of tungsten, right? And although I've not been told, the Callaway folks really like having the tungsten steel homogeneous mix, and then they pour it into a mold. That way they get a very consistent product. Well, how does that sit in here? Well, let's see. So if you have this in here, right, and then you take that, and make sure I get it into the right spot, and it sits in there just like that. All right, see that? So it sits in there just like that. Pull it out there one more time, like that, and there you go. And that just adds to more weight on the bottom, right? Just a big old tungsten weight. All right, so now you want to make it feel a little bit better. What are you going to do now? Well, you're going to add this little piece of rubber on there. You know, I'm sure it's more of a compound than just regular rubber, but there's the rubber. And you notice how it's got a couple of indentations, and right there's an indentation, and now you have the rubber sitting right inside there. Now, if you notice, you know, when we hit, most of us, when we miss, we're missing in this area, right? So they just made it to feel better on our misses on that. I'm digging that already. You take that, and then you put the face on it, and you've made an iron. Cup face forged iron, right? And you've got the back, and there's the cavity. So let's talk about the cavity now, right? Cavity backs are more forgiving than bladed or muscle back irons. That's just the tradition. And what that is that there's more weight that's gone to the outside here, and when you put more weight down here, again, the ball wants to go high, and so you have to work with a little bit of weight, a little bit of this, in order to get the spin rates that you want. Groove patterns come into effect, or at least the coarseness of the face, and it looks good that way, right? Then you get this piece. That piece sits right in there, and voila, you have just made an iron to show everybody out in the world. There you go. That's what your new Apex, how it's been built, how it can be made, and away you go. And again, if you're going to go out and you're going to get a set of these brandy spanking new jewels that you're going to want to put in your bag, get fit, right? The little bit of money you're going to invest in the fitting will pay huge dividends later when you go to get your set. You're gonna enjoy the clubs longer, the scores are gonna go lower, the feel's gonna be better, all those things get in line. Make sure that you go get fit. Now that we've put one together, let's go get a solid one, put a stick on it, and let's go see how they measure up in a way that they say that they're gonna measure up. This review is going to be done in multiple parts, mostly because of weather. The weather has been bad at worst case scenario. We go from 50-degree weather, which you get a lot of my testing done, to 20-degree weather, rain, snow, whatever else is in between. Combine that with the fact that we have been very busy with fittings and repairs and all that, so I'm cutting these pieces off as I can get to them. Now, we've talked about the Apex and how it's made along with the Apex Pro and how they're put together and how they work and what the manufacturer says. A quick recap is, you have the Apex, the Apex Pro. Apex, the new design's a little more compact. It would look like in comparison with the older model. I think it's a little cleaner. It's a little cleaner in its look, a little more forgiving, a little more cavity, a little more loft, or a little stronger loft, and so a little more forgiving. Where you have the Apex Pro. Apex Pro is smaller, more players cavity type thing, where this area here is a little bit smaller. Nice thin top line, a little less offset, a little smaller sole. Everybody's talking about the heads. Well, that's a good start. However, what's been offered with this is two new shafts to the market. And one is the graphite catalyst, and the other one is the steel elevate. Both from the True Temper department, and we have a True Temper Elevate 95 in Pro. We have the Elevate comes in a 95 gram shaft, which is this guy, and then it comes in a 120 model, this guy. Now, what is the Elevate? The Elevate's a steel shaft that has a new vibration dampening system in it, VSS. Basically, for those of you guys who've been around long enough, Sensicor. Different model, different kind of make. And in the Tour, the Sensicor is a smaller amount because they assume that it's for a better ball striker, so you don't need as much vibration reduction. The idea is, the lighter weight one will be kind of a low mid, where the heavy one will be more of a lower launching. So if you're a stronger golfer, chances are this medium golfer, medium better golfer, the 95. You have a Catalyst 80 and you'll have a Catalyst 100. Again, the 80 and the 100 are more related to the weight of the club. And again, this is a low mid, so a little bit higher launch, where this one will be a slightly lower launch, and significantly different weights. They're all outfitted in the fitting system. They're all outfitted with the Golf Pride 360 Tour Velvet. And why is it 360? Well, if you notice that there's no pattern, right? Or there's no logo, so you can go in there any way you want, and that's why. And it's kind of a Tour Velvety. Now, I've also seen the Lampkin ZT5 be put on there in some of the other grips that are coming out, and very sticky, nice pattern. So you might end up with both, or you could ask for either one, especially if you're doing a custom job. Want to get a grip that you like. So what did we find? And this is where we talk about what did we find, what do they say. Okay, so I measured them all. So when you have shafts that vary from 80, 95, 100, 125, those numbers are going to change in maybe swing weight, maybe flex, maybe, those kinds of things. And these guys over here are going to say it's all going to be the same. That is a tough road to hoe. So let's find out what we did. And what did we find? In the Apex, all right, a 37-inch 7-iron, that's standard, 62-degree lie angle, 33 degrees of loft. So what are they supposed to be? It's supposed to be a 37-inch 7-iron, 33 degrees of loft, and 62 degrees of lie. So we're right on target for that one. Now, the big change was swing weight. I found the swing weights. Now they're all over the map, and not in a bad way. They were just different because as the weights change, because the head is the same, if the weight changes, something's got to change, and that's got to be swing weight and or flex. From lightest to heaviest, I went from a D2 to a D3.5. So what's it say? The graphite's D0 and the steel is D2. Now, I found some graphite to be D2. I didn't find any D0s. They either were D2 or they were D3.5. So just slightly heavier. And in reality, you would think that graphite would be lighter, but when you're still talking a 100-gram shaft, you're still going to be a little higher in the swing weight. What did we find in flex? Well, in flex, we went anywhere from 4.75 to 6.5. 4.5 is in the Elevate to the 6.5, which would be in the Catalyst. So a bit of a range, all in the stiff range. And again, that's what we've talked before, is that not all the shafts are created equal. That is why you have to go through the fitting. So go through the fitting. So what's it say over here? It doesn't. And that's a smart move, because each shaft's different. You know, you'd have to have an encyclopedia of here's what these should be, because, well, if this company says it's supposed to be this flex, this company will say it's supposed to be this flex, and there are two different flexes, and all they do is confuse you and I. So that's the reason why you see stiff. That's the reason why I measure them, so I know what's going to work for you when getting into that. So what did we find in the Pro, right? What do we find in the Pro? Well, again, it was 37 inches. Again, it was 62-degree line angle, but it was 30 degrees of loft. So slightly stronger, as it should in a Pro, right? This Pro is for the stronger guy. It's for, you know, a guy that can get the ball still out there looking, doesn't need to hit it a million yards. It's for a guy that was looking for that particular distance that they're looking for. What'd the OEM say? The OEM said the same thing. 37 inch, 62-degree lie angle, and 33 degrees of loft. So we're hitting a home run with that one. Now, I measured both these heads. The regular head was heavier than the Pro head. I think that should have been the other way around. And then the swing weights would have probably been a little closer. And they're off by about 5 grams. And that's a fairly significant number. And that resulted in, I had swing weights in the Pro model everywhere around the the D0 to D1 range, where it's supposed to be all D2. Now again, how is it going to all be D2 when you have different weight shafts? Don't know, but it was a little lighter, and so once you weigh out the heads, it's nothing that we don't see. However, the heads should be heavier. So the last thing we want to talk about in specifications is the offset. The offset is actually measured from the website. I don't measure the offset. The offset is 3 millimeters in the Apex and 2.8 in the. So everything we came to know and need in a forgiving club. All right. So bigger cavity, slightly wider sole, a little more offset, stronger loft, some friendlier shafts. You know, the way that it's made, nice forged club, is still staying with the tradition of the Apex. The Pro model, again, is also something that we come to realize in that, again, the smaller cavity, thinner top line, again, a slightly smaller sole, a little less offset, and available in shafts that are for the stronger player. So the only thing that really we found a little bit outside the norm would be the head weight, which could be an anomaly. I didn't weigh the other ones, which I probably should. But it worked, right? So I took this and I went into the fitting room back there, and we had a good day and we hit them. And so now we're going to go back out there and we're going to do the fitting part of it. All right, so the fitting portion is powered by Flight Scope. I'm using the X3 and some brand spanking new Wilson range balls, and I'm hitting from my fiber built mat out into a net that goes out onto my range. I do that so I can collect the balls and so they don't go flying over the net. What did we find? Well, let's go see. saw, we hit them, not too bad. Got to warm up with my wedges and another shorter iron getting into it, and hit them. So what's the end result? What was the end result? Well, of course, the Apex for a guy that's not a player, i.e. me, felt very good. Surprisingly so, that the Pro model felt very good. Now that's, when you get it in the middle of the club, they all feel very good. So what does that mean? Well, so from a fitting perspective, what are we going to talk about? Well, number one is, the Apex Pro is for the better ball striker. All right, a guy that doesn't suffer from the massive fades or massive hooks. It is a, very slight offset, very shallow sole. So if you're a big monster divot taker, chances are you're probably not going to like this. However, if you're a good ball striker, guy takes a pretty clean divot, can control your ball very, a little stronger, then chances are you're going to love this club, right? And with the shaft options that are available, now I just showed you the Catalyst and the Elevate because those are the stock shafts. However, that doesn't stop you from, say, a KBS Tour or a C-Taper or a Project X. It just doesn't, you can get something that maybe you're a little more familiar with and get a feel, because from a player's iron, this is a fairly forgiving player's iron. And to the point that, and we've seen it already, I think, out on tour, is you get the taller irons, say the 3 or the 4 and even into the 5, and use the regular Apex, and then from the 6 down use the Pro model. And you can get them bent, and then that way you don't have this ginormous gap when you decide to switch. All right. The look of this club is just amazing at address. It circles the ball very well. When you look down on it, you can have some confidence. It does have a compact appearance, but it still gets through the turf, right? Even if for a guy that like me, who is not that good of a ball striker, I still got it out there. In fact, one of the clubs, I went from 165. Yeah, I hit, the funny part was I was very consistent with the Pro, launching both using the Catalyst and the Elevate to 164 and still getting out to 176. And that was very, very consistent. Where in the Apex, I had about a 10-yard difference between the shafts, meaning that apparently I didn't like one of the shafts. But in the Pro model, I was very, very consistent. Now that could be rust knocking off, that could be a lot of things, but when your numbers don't lie. So if numbers don't lie, then I'm hitting the ball pretty good. Best to best, I was 164, 176 versus a 171, 183. So, and if I'm in the middle, the Apex wins. The Apex wins. So what do we see on the Apex? Again, the Apex had the larger cavity, had the most of the weight is on the bottom, so it was able to get back up in the air. I won't say that it's bigger, but it has that appearance that it's bigger at address. Has a slightly larger top line for those guys that are top line sensitive. And again, it comes with you can get the slightly lighter shafts, the 95s and the 100s versus the 100s and the 120s, and have something that you can still control. So again, who would this be for? Well, this would be you could be from the average player to the better player. Getting the right length, the right lie angle, the right flex, the right weight. This could be a golf club that could be in basically anybody's bag for quite some time. And using the technology that's in this with the multiple piece construction, using the different materials from the soft to the metal, in both cases, this is a very high technical type club that's going to allow you to get out there and they're going to look good in the bag for a long time. From the average to better than average player for the Apex to the slightly better than average to player for the Pro. And if you're that guy that's the tweener, get a combo set. If you're in that mid 80s kind of setup, mid to low 80s, there's nothing wrong with using the Apex. Use the Apex at the top end and use the Pros at the bottom end. They are doing that. And I would certainly say that that's one way of going. Okay, so there's the review on the Callaway Apex irons, the Apex and the Apex Pro. And there's more coming along. I've just started getting more of my stuff in, and we will be doing more of this. So if you like this particular format where we talk about how it's put together, and then we go measure it up, and then we do some hitting and talk about the fitting afterwards, leave a comment in the show notes and let me know. If there's something else that you're wanting to see or find out about it, let me know down there, and we'll try and include that going forward for making the reviews better. All right, so from the McGolf Shop, let's see your scores. Go low.